Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, as the pandemic reshapes and retunes various aspects of a business and even entire business models, it won't leave the IT department untouched. In our next panel discussion, top technology leaders deliberate on aspects that will help IT decision makers to relook at their IT departments and technology plans in the post-COVID-19 era.
Hi everyone, I am Radhika Saigal, partner with EY in India, leading technology transformation for financial services. And today, it's my honor to welcome eminent leaders from industry on technology. With me today are Mukesh Rathi, CIO and CDO, Dr. Reddy's Laboratory, Vrijesh Nagathan, CIO India and Southwest Asia, Coca-Cola, Jeyandran Venugopal, CPTO, Flipkart, Altaf Patel, Director Business Transformation, Tesco, Sriharsha Narasimhan, CTO, APE, Aruba, Vishant, Vora, CTO, Vodafone Idea. We have leaders, technology leaders across industry for a very candid discussion on reclaiming growth through technology. Here we are already in August 2020. This year certainly has been tough amidst this pandemic, which estimated loss for world economy has been around $4 trillion. So that's on one side, but today where we stand, the focus is completely on getting back to normal growth, growing back your economy, and from an India perspective, getting Atmanirbhar. Between these two spectrum, the entire demand as well as behavior of human being have changed, which has caused a change in entire business model. Our needs have changed, business model has changed, and amidst all of this is technology, where on one side, they have to keep the entire current business sustained, and on the other side, they have to completely fine-tune the entire business through new technology innovation. And in middle of all of that, they have to facilitate a workforce which is completely virtual. So technology is not just an enabler anymore, it is completely a technology driver. With this, I would like to put my first question around how in industry we are seeing business demand change, and from a technology standpoint, what are the different innovations that you and your organization is bringing from a technology standpoint to enable this new business demand. And the first question I would like to take to Mukesh Rathi, because pharmaceutical is front and center in this COVID. A lot of pressure on getting the vaccines ready to support the existing pandemic. So over to you, Mukesh. How has the business changed? What is technology's role in supporting the business?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thanks, Radhika, and very happy to be part of this panel with the eminent panelists. You said it right. Essentially, it's a two-pronged strategy or two-pronged problem to solve. One is, I think one has to sustain the current business. And second, one has to solve for the new normal, to continue the business model, to continue the business. Pharmaceutical industry in particular, because we are part of essential services, even during lockdowns, the expectation is that we are continue to manufacture medicines and ensuring that they reach to our patients across the world. And hence, we have been continuing operations in lockdown, outside lockdown, almost trying to be at the same pace. I think the good news is that we at Dr. Reddy's have been on a very aggressive digital transformation journey, and most of our operations, over a period of time, we had digitized end to end. So when the lockdown began, I think the primary motto which we applied to our operations is, other than any activity which either needs to move material or touch an equipment, everything else we should be able to do remote. And we were able to sort of turn that on in a very short period of time. So that helped us to sustain the current business in the new normal. Coming to how the market is shifting, how the demand is shifting, how customer expectations are shifting. Let me take two examples there. One is we run a B2B business wherein we sell API to customers to make formulations out of them. I think there the primary shift, while it is not that big, is our salespeople are not able to meet the customers and the whole conversation has become virtual. I think again the good news there is we have been working on an active collaboration platform with our customers where we actually did very active customer journey mapping to see how the whole experience of the customer from the initial conversation till the end of commercial relationship is fully end-to-end digital, and we are able to, the customer is able to see all the end-to-end transaction and we are able to monitor as well. Having said that, when the pandemic came into effect, we realized that our imagination was not good enough. There were gaps even in that thinking, while all thinking was applied, and there are some corrective actions we are doing to that. But that part of the business is relatively less impacted. The other part of the business, which we call as branded generics, wherein thousands of PSRs in the field go and meet doctors every day to detail our medicines to them, to tell them the effectiveness of the medicine, and doctors use that knowledge, to prescribe medicines to patients. There, all of a sudden, the new normal, our PSRs were not meeting doctors anymore. All the other services which we were providing to our doctors in terms of, bringing them together with a key opinion leader, helping them in their learning process, all of that got stopped. And this is where the new normal drastically enabled the digital movement. While some of this was work in progress, some of this we were talking to our business unit holders, all of this was, largely good to do, something we'll do on the sideline, because the new normal was continuing, because the regular way of business was continuing. But when the new normal hit, all of them became so urgent that everybody wanted the entire digital thing to have happened yesterday. And that is the big shift. That is the big shift which happened. There are multiple programs which the company is running to sort of make all those processes digital end to end. One of them being creating a platform where we wanting to create a 360-degree view of our customers, all our interactions, digital, physical, which we do with our customer, and being able to provide a personalized service depending on the need of our doctors, almost like a Netflix experience. So those are some programs which we are running as we speak.
Good, thank you. With this, let us move to retail industry. How is that getting impacted? Currently, even the old people I would take an example of my dad who used to not even use a credit card, is ordering groceries online. Jeyandran, how are you seeing that entire customer behavior changing, and how is technology enabling that?
Absolutely, Radhika. I think there are lots of shifts that are happening in demand patterns, consumer behavior, and openness to trying out the online medium as a vehicle for fulfilling their demands, because a lot of the traditional supply chain and channels are still fairly disrupted. It could be for very many reasons, right? But what we have seen is that at the start of the lockdown, if I were to go a little bit back, right, I think we saw that the government, for very good reasons, had actually put the entire country on a stringent lockdown where only essential products could be delivered, right? So our supply chain had to be quickly reconfigured to be able to deal with that. And we realized that to satisfy the needs of the country, we needed to be very agile. And we, for example, worked with large format retailers like Spencer's, Vishal Megamart, etc., and said that, like, beyond our own grocery vertical, which is there only in a handful of cities, how do we bring the benefits of the online platform to a lot many more customers in very, very quick time, right? So we had to reconfigure our supply chain, do some quick integrations with partners, large format retailers, to be able to source inventory from them and give the experience to the customers which they're used to, which is the Flipkart app experience. And also in terms of delivery, we had challenges. At the same time, we know that a lot of the gig economy workers, specifically like the Uber, Ola drivers, were obviously finding it difficult to continue to earn a livelihood. So we said that we will partner with Uber, and then we will partner with the cab aggregators like Meru and all that. So use them as our fulfillment vehicle to expand our last mile capabilities, right? So all of this happened to quickly reconfigure our capabilities through partnerships, through agility in tech integrations, to be able to continue to deliver what the country needed at the time of demand. And also, if you look at it, the supply lines were getting disrupted, right? So we could not actually source products from, like, a lot of states, even after the unlock began, had actually put themselves on a full complete lockdown, right? So they were not letting other states vehicles, goods even movement when they were under strict lockdown. If you look at our national supply chain, a lot of procurement and demand matching to supply happens as a pan-India effort, right? So then how do you now reconfigure your systems of demand forecasting, supply planning, network management, etc., so that you are able to now do this with all these additional constraints that were never part of your original systems design, right? So being nimble on our feet to be able to rethink that. And also in terms of containment zones and how they evolve, and even the definition of what was essential good, non-essential good, changed quite a few times, including between states and so on and so forth, right? So we had to actually, and those concepts were never part of our original vocabulary when we described our catalog in our systems and all of that, right? So we had to quickly kind of like do some work, and our teams really stepped up tremendously to be able to do all of this systemically. And the fact that we had a custom built in-house end-to-end systems helped quite a bit for us to be agile, right? And that helped us fine tune our definitions of the catalog, being able to segment it by geography, being able to do some micro targeting to be able to manage things like containment zones, pin code level exclusion lists, and all of that stuff, right? So those helped us build a lot of new capabilities in our platforms. And even at data centers, for example, right? So when we were under strict lockdown, we could not even have our actual field personnel go into the data centers to be able to fix issues if there were any issues, right? So the fact that we had invested quite heavily in business continuity plan, fault tolerance, disaster recovery, all of that helped quite a bit. In terms of even ways of working, right? It was remotely, completely remotely managed, right? It was kind of a social experiment done at this scale like never before. And we were all forced to innovate and invent new mechanisms. If you look at our customer service, for example, right? Like we had a lot of captive customer service centers as well as partner locations where people had to come into work, right? So then now if everybody had to work from home, how do you even land your VoIP voice calls to them? How do you effectively do that without compromising security of your data and customers' data? All of those became very interesting challenges that we dealt with, and now they are opportunities. Now these new capabilities that we have created so that even a remote workforce sitting from anywhere can actually log in and effectively do customer service without needing to physically be in a premises is helping us even rethink, hey, can we go to a completely non-traditional model and decentralize it even more, right? And even realize even more cost efficiencies in the process or higher levels of customer service in the process. So all of those are things that we have innovated on. In terms of the new demand patterns that we are seeing, as you pointed out, I think the country is really waking up to the reality of the selection, the convenience, and the value benefits that this particular medium and channel brings to them. And we are seeing very good adoption of e-commerce, and the adoption that was already on a growth curve in the tier 2 and 3 cities and beyond has accelerated substantially. This also meant that we needed to bring market innovations to help them be more comfortable with online platforms. So that's why we released things like voice assistant for grocery specifically, which is the first vertical for which we released a voice assistant, which could actually deal with both Hindi and English and mixed mode speech. Right, and we also released the platform in 3 more vernacular languages beyond just Hindi and English. Right, we released it in 3 South languages that were never part of the platform. We also innovated on videos. For example, we knew that a lot of people are now stuck at home. They're trying to spend their time online, and how do we actually use Flipkart as a platform and the reach that we have to engage them better? So we introduced a lot of gamification constructs, interactive formats, and we launched a new games on the platform, new original shows on the platform through our OTT video platform. So tons and tons of stuff. And in summary, I would say that in terms of the demand, what we are seeing is that what we thought would take maybe 18 months or beyond in terms of increasing adoption of e-commerce is starting to happen more and more, because the value of the channel is becoming even more self-evident to people in terms of getting what they need in their time of need.
Excellent. Right from conversation bots to AI, machine learning to the entire ways of working transformation. That's like a whole paradigm of digital transformation, all happening in last few months at an accelerated pace. So very, very good example there. How has this impacted the food industry? Now, Vrijesh, do you want to talk about that? And how has technology enabled that particular change?
Yeah, thanks, Radhika. So essentially, if you look at it, there were 3 phases, right? So it hit us, then we absorbed it, and then we bounced back, and then we are trying to do much better. As our CEO puts it, from being safe to doing business safely, right? So that's the overall mantra that we kind of live by. Now, in all of this, IT has been a key force, or in fact, I would say jokingly, IT became the most sought after function in the entire organization, so to speak, right? Internally, we did set up a certain kind of outreaches to each single employee, to just give them a feel that the organization is with them, so that not just the health and safety part of it, but even the emotional well-being part of it, to say that people should keep their morale up, etc. And also from a outreach perspective, we had global town halls wherein almost 10,000 people would join in, APAC region town halls wherein around 3,000, 4,000 people would join in, and of course the weekly town halls that we used to run for the in-store business. So all of this kind of brought the overall morale up, and the IT function was the one which was at the backbone of making all of this happen. And at the same time, people started, people who would kind of have nothing to do with IT types, they all become such a deep advocates of technology, such a deep advocates of using technology and figuring it out themselves, right? So all of that is something which is a big transformation that has happened. And also, this particular thing has, kind of rolled on to the overall ecosystem as well, with our bottling partners, with our distributors, all of those, because we had to kind of set up the overall data inflow and also the overall decision-making capabilities with, unconventional data sources like, like it was mentioned earlier, what particular, factories are in red zones, what particular transportation lanes are open, how do we channelize our products. So all of this was something that you had to kind of build almost overnight, I would say. It was something where it was not completely automatic. It was a mix of both people pitching in and also technology coming together. But it's accelerated the faith that people have in technology multiple times. So with that, that's something which has happened at multiple levels. And also, I would say it has accelerated the network effect, right? Network effect is something which in Coca-Cola also, it's something which is being propagated, but this particular transformation has accelerated that, thought process altogether. There were so many communities of practice that were set up across geographies. For example, I would say there were certain countries which got hit by COVID much earlier than India, right? We were able to kind of learn from them, both the hard data as well as the softer aspects of it. And even when we talk of hard data, the overall hard sales numbers, the revenue, the categories, etc., plus also the unconventional metrics like the stringency effect. So in our analytics, we were able to build that, turn that around quickly, or even the ability with which people are recovering, right? How is this having an effect on consumers, and how is it shaping consumers? What are the particular formats with which consumers are wanting to buy, single serve versus multi-serve? So all of those particular aspects, right?
Excellent. So data and data at the core of it, and all innovations surrounding data. That's interesting and very important element which you brought, and even Mukesh and Jeyandran brought about, was on network and security. And with this, I would like to go to Vishant. Vishant, with Vodafone at the center of networking, what is it that you are seeing from a business perspective and innovations happening in your industry through technology?
Unlike many of the other industries, Radhika, which experienced a significant reduction in their business in the early days of the lockdown, we had the opposite. We had a massive increase within a matter of couple of days in terms of the traffic and usage on of our networks. And for example, within about 2 to 3 days, we experienced the same amount of growth that we experienced typically in 1 year. So we had to overnight massively scale up all of our networks across the country in terms of capacity. Also, the usage actually shifted from many of the business centers to the residential areas. So while we were scaling up all of these capacities, we had to actually also shift it into different geographies. And all of this had to be done overnight in an environment where most of our employees could not even move out in the field to do the work. At the same time, in the enterprise, our IT teams had to actually make sure that entire organization can work from home overnight because the networks were severely overloaded and they needed to be accessed to do all of this provisioning of capacity, reconfigurations, re-engineering, re-optimization. And we have thousands of people generally sitting in our network operations centers in Pune and Hyderabad. None of them could actually come. Many of them did not want to come into the office for the obvious reasons. So all of these guys actually had to work from the home to make sure this massive reconfiguration of the network happened. So the IT teams really stepped in, and overnight we were able to convert a lot of the traditional things like video conferencing systems into cloud-based solutions that we could use, which we could scale up and down very easily. We had to rush very, very basic things like laptops, because while people were in the office, they're working on desktops. Well, so we had to actually get laptops for people so they could work from home. We had to actually also shift some of the desktops into people's homes so the work can happen. So a lot of that kind of physical work that needed to happen. In addition to that, we needed to also make sure that we do all of this work securely. So we had to make sure that we put in all of the proper security protocols, measurements, and monitoring in place to make sure that we do not end up compromising the security of our network, the privacy of our customers, etc. So a lot of work happened in the security domain as well. So massive amount of effort across the entire technology domain. To me, these are the times, this pandemic times has really demonstrated to the entire society and pretty much across all industries and geographies, how critical the technology is to their business. And pretty much across most industries, I have seen really the IT teams or whether you're talking about network teams, they have really stepped up and met the needs of the company and met the needs of the society at large, like heroes. So to me, it was a heroic effort over the last 6 months. And then the team's done a fantastic job. And I believe the rest of the organization really has a very different view as a consequence of all of these things. I think they view IT as so much more critical and crucial, I think they, before the pandemic. The other thing is, I think it has completely accelerated the digital, the cloudification, and the data analytics. Those three things were already gaining track within our business. This pandemic has actually, I would say, probably increased the pace of adoption 10x, 100x. Because all those three things is what makes our entire business to operate today. And I think that is true for many of our users, our enterprise clients. Those three things are accelerating as trends there as well. And we need to enable that. We need to support it as a network providers I think that is the other big change that has been brought about because of this pandemic.
Thanks, Vishant. Infrastructure has certainly been the most important thing with virtual working and a lot to do with networks. And thanks for bringing out this topic of security and cyber security. There are a lot of conversations right now happening in terms of cyber security breaches. Is this pandemic also increasing frauds? With this, Sriharsha, do you want to talk about what is happening from a cyber standpoint and a security standpoint, and are there innovations happening to prevent that?
Very much. Okay, when I look at our own journey, okay, overnight we had to shift from being there in offices worldwide, okay, to working from home. And our story is 7,000 branches being started in 7 days, because that's literally what happened. But good part is some of the solutions that we were developing, okay, were already out with all our employees, okay, so that we were able to get good amount of visibility to everyone who was connecting into our network. And we used an approach wherein we were able to get visibility to everyone getting connected. And then we brought in security to protect all these users, okay, so that even if they are working from home and they need to connect additional equipment, for example, our call center employees had to take their phones home and then plug in their phones into the remote access point at home. And then we were onboarding those devices securely so that they were able to enjoy the same level of security that was there at their workplace, okay, back in their homes as well. But we cannot stop at that, because this is the time, okay, where we have seen a ramp up of all the cyber threats as well. Okay, especially the cyber criminals are looking at how do I exploit all the vulnerabilities which are there, because I know that the systems which are there in data center are not going to be protected that much because everyone is busy in doing many other things. And this is where we brought in additional technology wherein we were continuously looking into our network on what threats are there, okay, and then fixing them rapidly. At the same time, also looking at the shift that's happening wherein rather than having traffic going from our data center outwards, it was the reverse of that was there. So we had to do a lot of replanning of our data movement and make sure that there was no compromise, okay, that could occur either out in the employees' homes where they were connecting, okay, along with their families as well. Okay, so family traffic was segregated so that, okay, it goes directly to internet and only the corporate traffic is coming into our network, okay. And then at the same time, they had seamless access to all the applications, everything that they had to do. And there was a large contingent of employees who were doing R&D. And now they had to shift all their work home and then continue to deliver, okay, the product capabilities without any glitch or without any change. So this is the interesting journey that we had. And then I believe we have been quite successful in bringing this out, okay, in a secure manner, and also helping some of our customers imbibe the same thing, okay, wherein we are able to courier an access point to their employees' homes, where the employee is able to connect to the corporate network, okay, by just plugging that access point to the network, internet. And then from there, okay, enjoy the same level of access and privileges that they were enjoying in their office back at home with zero touch.
Thanks, Sriharsha. This is pretty interesting. There was one statistic that I was reading that cybercrime is going to cause world economy $6 trillion loss by 2021, and hence this prevention is the very, very important. It is bigger pandemic than the current COVID pandemic. With this, I would like to move to Altaf. Altaf, let's move this entire conversation more into now cost optimization. We have margin pressures. A lot of organizations and businesses are suffering huge losses from an entire technology standpoint. How is standardization, simplifications, cost optimization been brought about? Do you want to share any insights around that?
Sure, I will. Thanks, Radhika, and thanks, ET, for the opportunity as well. And also would want to congratulate all the CIOs out here for all the work that they've done. I completely agree. I think it's a moment of pride for you and for all the IT professionals worldwide, right? Because I think they've been the driver of sustaining the business, not just the enabler. So just a bit of a context, Tesco is a global retailer. We've got about close to 6,000 stores globally. And what we do within Bangalore and likewise from the other centers we are a global business services setup. We are about 5,000 colleagues worldwide, supporting all of our Tesco markets. So from a standardization simplification point of view, we are very labor intensive, right? We've got about 5,000 colleagues. And kudos to obviously all the work that technology teams did that helped us enable 95% of our operations was working from home. Everything that everyone has spoken about, from laptops being dispatched to Nepal to the other states, we've been able to kind of carry all of that out very seamlessly and smoothly, to ensuring that collaboration tools such as Teams, which nobody was using pre-COVID. Even I had it configured on my laptop, but never used it. And that was not a culture as well. But everyone now, I think we've seen about 800% jump in Teams to about 600% jump on Zoom. So a big shift in collaboration to what we've seen in the productivity measurement capabilities and tools as well, right? We are now able to see, how many hours our colleague put into the work. We are able to give them the flexibility from scheduling and being able to kind of work more flexibly. From a standardization, cost optimization point of view, it's very important for us to be more efficient because it straight away kind of feeds into the margin for Tesco. And so we've got a number of various programs going on. One is driving a more bottom-up culture, which is what we call continuous improvement. This is where every colleague is involved in looking at how they improve their processes. We drive lean waves. We make sure that it gets embedded as a culture, and everyone is looking at how to improve their processes. We've been able to now, with the COVID, turn a lot of what we used to do physically, be it in the form of huddles, dashboards. We've turned them into virtual dashboards. We've turned them into virtual huddles, and we are still able to continue that engagement. And that's really helped in the employee engagement as well. So that lean culture, in essence, is a foundation for us. We've also been able to look at our end-to-end processes such that we're looking at all the interactions. As business services, what we are privileged with is we have a sight of all the interactions of our key stakeholders. So we take all the calls coming in from our customers. We've got about 1,500 colleagues in Dundee who are taking in all the calls. We manage all the payroll aspects for all of our colleagues. We've got about 500,000 colleagues globally. So we manage all the payroll activities, and likewise we've got commercial functions which manage all the changes that we have to bring about in the stores as well. There's a large operations that we run, and it's important that we have an end-to-end view across each of these functions. So there's a huge focus on end-to-end processes and how we can kind of look at it. There's a big focus on digitalization as well, such that we can automate a lot of our mundane repetitive tasks. So we've invested in robotics process automation, and that's taken a big shift as well in terms of accelerating that. But at the same time, digitalizing a lot of our interactions with the stakeholders. So we don't have a chatbot capability, but we are investing in it right now. We have about 5,000 queries coming in from our suppliers, but they come across various teams. And what we are looking at is seeing how all of that can be channeled into a better interaction with the suppliers, because they are an important stakeholder in our ecosystem. And likewise, for all of our colleagues, probably there are 100 IVR options for them to connect with us. And we are looking at how we can simplify that, how we can make it a lot more easier for our colleagues to interact, and how we can even digitally drive that interactions as well. So those are some of the initiatives that we've got going on in terms of simplification, standardization, Radhika.
Thanks, Altaf. And this is an important element that cost is now a primary factor. While you have to be agile and you have to digitize for a new customer need, you have to first sustain your business and get funding for the new innovation. Now, on this topic, I want to again go back to Mukesh. Mukesh, since pharmaceutical industry is more an essential services, is cost playing an important factor there as well, or the focus is completely on servicing, digitization, and just innovation?
So it is, I think, a very good question. We are a generic pharmaceutical manufacturing company, and cost has always been very important for us. Having said that, it's always managing the two in terms of how much we invest in R&D to bring in more products which are relevant for our patients across the world. At the same time, continuous focus on operational excellence, standardization to ensure that we run a tight ship such that we are able to make them more affordable for the patients. It is always the two things we run in parallel. Purely, I mean, given the context of how things have evolved, I think overall cost of the supply chain increased drastically. We invested a lot of money in terms of safety measures. I mean, very simple things like helping our people to come from their home to the plants. The overall cost of just doing that increased 5 times because we have to maintain social distancing even in the bus. We have to make sure we are, doing temperature scanning. Every time there is one positive case in a zone, we went out and actually got everybody tested. There's a lot of money which got invested in testing, to make sure, because one of the things we said that if we want our people to come to work, from the point they step out of their home to the point they go back, they should feel safer, if not equally safe, as they do in their home. And has that increased the overall cost, and it was very important that we provide that comfort to our employees, which surely creates pressure on the rest of the business in terms of how do we manage. But having said that, there are costs which you spend on sales and marketing, which automatically go up and down. There is cost which organizations spend on travel. Now nobody's traveling. So there is a lot of saving which started coming from there. And hence there is a balance which organizations are trying to strike from that perspective. Having one of the things which also brought to fore as part of all this learning is the whole thing on, I think you spoke about standardization. Ability to think about digitization, not just for the heck of it, but in a fashion that you almost reimagine what you're trying to do. Okay, and there were sort of very, very interesting learnings which came in that process. I mean, when the lockdown started, we were running a program. Essentially, we run a digital workplace program for the last few years, which has moved off, make people work anytime, anywhere, increase collaboration, knowledge management, all of that stuff. And there was a sort of project which we were running, which was a 6-month timeline, 1 month in, and we had another 5 months to do. The lockdown happened, and we realized this is needed. That 5 months became 5 days, and whatever was planned in 5 months actually happened in 5 days. Okay, now all this happened because people were pushed to the wall. There was no alternative. We had to find various ways of doing it. I think a lot of this learning, I think if embedded into day-to-day business, could actually transform completely the way we think about cost, resources, schedules, best practices. I think in a lot of form, all of that is getting reset. And that is the learning one has to take as one go forward.
So aptly said, Mukesh, and good to know that even essential services is thinking about cost optimization in parallel to meeting all the demands that you're facing. I mean, hats off to technology. How this entire economy is still surviving is only basis of this technology and all the innovations, as well as all the thinking and the networks that have been brought into forefront. With this, let's just change the topic in terms of what's the role of technologists today? Has it changed? I'm hearing that technology is there running the business, technology is saving the cost, technology is enabling the workforce. Everything, in middle of everything, the technology exists. So Jeyandran, do you think the role of a technology leader has changed now? And if yes, what was it pre-COVID and what has it become post-COVID?
So Radhika, we are a digital native company, right? So we always were actually a business that had technology and product at the center of or the core of our DNA, right? So it was not ever actually, at least in our business, just an enabler, but was actually a driver of the business. And it was the core element that created that competitive differentiation for us, be it in terms of our platform scalability, our UX, UI design, and in terms of our back office operations being seamless and scalable to handle volumes that could really break most systems, right? Like if you look at sale events like Big Billion Day that we do, These are events that crucially depend on technology to make them successful, right? So we, as a digital native company and as a technology and product-centered company, we were always at the forefront of pushing the agenda for the company forward. But I think now with COVID, it has become even more supercharged, right? Like in terms of inventing new ways of doing the business, it is very clear that we have to be very nimble on our feet, and we have to, in fact, accelerate our innovation journey. So that's why we, in just in the span of the last 6 months, we have released so many new market-specific innovations. Right around COVID, we actually innovated on a certain contactless payment initiatives. We used our regular supply chain to handle grocery, which typically has always had its own separate supply chain, including the pick and pack modules and last mile sorting. Everything was different, right? So to be able to quickly reconfigure the business, it has been even more clear to everyone that technology would be the key lever that will play the part of not just an enabler, but actually the differentiator for our business, right? And in terms of launching new categories or launching new capabilities on the platform, we continue to innovate. And even on things like security, enabling new ways of working, including remote working that even other panelists talked about, right? Those kind of things become really important for a company like us, which operates at a huge scale. And being able to run our big sale events, etc., completely remotely means that technology has to play a role in the forefront of defining the right processes, protocols, being prepared in terms of business continuity, doing the scale testing, performance testing, resiliency testing, and by design, making sure we are disaster recovery proof, etc., right, are all becoming more and more important for any CIO and for the organization at large. And clearly, technology has to take charge of those agendas for the company and keep pushing the business forward. So that's how I see it, Radhika.
No, absolutely. I mean, the technology is in the forefront of everything and in middle of everything as well. A great point, Jeyandran, and you also touched upon the ways of working transformation, which is very consistent across. Everyone spoke about that. Everyone has a similar story, digitization, cost optimization on the other side, and ways of working transformation and enablement on in the center. Vrijesh, as yourself as a technology leader, has your role changed during COVID as compared to the past, or any flavor which got added or deleted, which you would like to highlight?
You know, as I said earlier also, we became the most sought after function, right? But, you know, sitting back and seeing what has gone through and looking at what transformation has happened in people. So the receptivity of people towards technology has increased, their faith in it has increased. So I think, where do we go from there? I think just like, you know, the people function, the HR function says everyone is a people manager, or, you know, from manufacturing, they say quality is everyone's responsibility. So in the same spirit, I would want to propagate a thought saying that technology enhancements or technology adoption is now becoming everyone's, you know, motto, or everyone should be a technology manager, right? So that's the kind of next thought, or the step change is what I'm visualizing, because people, you know, have adopted it and they know it works. So, you know, that's the way to go is what I think. Of course, we'll kind of, you know, get into newer technologies and all of those things. But the steep acceleration, which, you know, some of the panelists referred to, is something that we should build upon. That's my firm thought.
So the boundaries between business and technology has completely been broken. It is now technology-led business driven by technology. It's one single ways of working, very agile, very nimble, and that's coming as a very consistent theme throughout. Now, Vishant, from a Vodafone perspective, was there any extra focus that was done from fraud perspective? Did you see any trend in that direction during COVID because of the networks, etc.?
Instead of tackling fraud, actually what we saw was that in the early days, in the first couple of months, there were many people who absolutely rely on our services, but did not have ways to go and recharge their phones, add credit to their phones. Maybe they didn't even have money. Stores were shut down. So what we did was we actually gave away a very large amount of usage for free to those customers as a gesture of helping the community that we operate in. Now, certainly, many of our clients are struggling to pay their bills, and I think we're taking a pretty compassionate view on that whenever and wherever feasible. So we've taken a much more gentle approach in this difficult times towards people. In terms of the fraud and other things, we have enough systems and processes in place really to control that. And those were there before the pandemic, and those continue to operate. And I think we are in a very good control of that situation. I think your earlier question about what the role of the technologist, I believe, Radhika, that the technologists in many of the industries probably were seen as enablers of the business even prior to the pandemic. I think after the pandemic, that view will change. I think they'll be seen much more as drivers of the business.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I think that's a big shift for many of us as managers. We need to recognize that shift, and we really need to then participate much more vigorously in many of the decisions that we might have otherwise not participated in. The common terminology that I hear all the time in the technology world is, oh, business wants this, as though technology or IT is something separate from business. I don't believe that's a luxury we can afford. If you are a digital company, then technology is the business.
Absolutely.
And that is a big shift that we need to make as technology leaders driving this industry.
No, absolutely. And technology is enabling new businesses as well, which was not even thought about by the traditional business owners, that this could be it could be a business model on the first place. This has been a very, very good conversation. Last couple of points that I would certainly like before I go into learning that we are getting out of this to be summarized. Sriharsha, do you want to talk about are organizations coming back to work or planning to come back to work? And if yes, now what they need to do from technology, infrastructure, networking point of view, and what do you see where this is heading towards?
Very much. Thank you, Radhika, for bringing that up, because that's going to be on top of everyone's mind. How do I bring my employees back from their comforts, okay, to back to work? And this is where, okay, the shift of the IT also is going to be coming in, because one of the things that we started seeing, or we were seeing earlier, was everyone was focused on performance. Okay, you need performance of every infrastructure component that's there in the organization. And then from there, we were shifting to looking at how do I bring in better experience, okay, at the edge? Can I help people in getting their work done? Now, the network has become a sensor, okay, wherein we need to be looking at, okay, how do I influence my teams, my employees, not to lose productivity, but at the same time have visibility into the social distancing and then the contact tracing, okay, and also seamless connectivity. They should be able to connect and work from anywhere, because there's not going to be a fixed desk anymore. Okay, there's going to be fluidity in terms of where they need to work from. Okay, there's a possibility that they may need to go to a different office on a particular day. Okay, all kinds of challenges are going to be coming in front of us. And it's going to be a mix of behavioral analysis that we need to do, the cultural analysis that we need to do, and also blend in the technology, okay, to bring that. And this is a shift that we are seeing. Okay, and then this is where the new trends which are emerging, okay, using artificial intelligence for automation. And also there's a shift towards the traditional building to autonomous workplaces that's emerging. So wherein we want to work towards doing as much as work possible, okay, without touching anything. Of course, we need to touch our desk. So I know that if somebody comes back and says, I'm sick, I need to go and make sure that that desk is cleaned. I also need to know where all this person went, okay, and then what all they did. So we have been working on using the network as a sensor and then trying to stitch solutions around that. Again, all these has to be done rapidly so that we have these solutions available when everyone needs to come back to work. So we have some POCs that are going on now, okay, wherein I can look at where all there's teams which are having clusters or dense areas, okay, so that I can go back and influence their behavioral change, okay, without losing productivity and teamwork. Yeah, that becomes very critical, and this becomes a technology enabler for us as well for the trend change. Yeah.
Thank you, Sriharsha. When that's very, very crucial while people are looking at different modes of working. People returning back to work is also important. It would happen one day. I don't know how soon that would happen, and the planning has already started both back from an infrastructure standpoint, and it's so amazing. It needs a separate different type of planning to get people back to work. I mean, there was a time when we were planning how do we make people to work from home. Now we have started planning how do we get them back to work. But
yes,
in middle of all this, technology still rules. So very good. We will go round robin, one line from each one of you. What is that one element that you would like to highlight as the key learning that this crisis has brought about from a technology standpoint, which you think will continue from the growth perspective? And we will start with Altaf.
Yeah, so I think one thing that beautifully happened during COVID is lots of teams came together to solve the same problem, right? It was a common goal. How do you kind of stabilize the business, which meant technology, business teams, various teams coming together to find the solution. And I think that was a key takeaway where if that happens, then there is a really good opportunity to move quickly, the agility, the speed at which you can come out with propositions, the innovation that you can quickly launch and bring about. There was no politics, right? There was no agendas. There were no power centers. There were no, well, this is his agenda, or there was a common agenda of how we stabilize the operations. And that beautifully kind of happened. And I know some people, some companies sort of took a bit of time, but at the end of it, I think majority of the companies sort of kind of got there. I think that is a real opportunity going forward in how that can carry on, how that throughput can carry on, that agility and speed can carry on to deliver lots of innovative and digital solutions that the company can really grow and make most of. So I would say that is a big takeaway.
Ways of working, transformation for innovation. Vrijesh, your learning?
The first and foremost is virtual presence is far more effective, or it speeds up the execution much better than physical presence. Right? You don't have to wait for people's calendars to align so that people can travel, all of those things. And we've seen that speed of execution has really increased because of people being virtually available and people accepting that. Second is we've been able to do things which were kind of unimaginable. We have commissioned new production lines. We've done global audits. We've launched products. Imagine a company like Coca-Cola launching their products completely virtually. So all of these things are going to, give that particular speed to the business execution. Third, which I referred to, making sure that, technology enhancement is now something which is ingrained in every single employee.
Technology at core, virtualization, breaking boundaries through virtualization. Great points, Vrijesh. Thank you. Vishant, over to you. Key learnings?
I think the key learnings are actually, I tend to be far more traditional in this. I think it all comes down to your teams, your people. Whether you have a great technology organization and a capability depends on the people that you have. So ultimately, it is all about building great teams and making sure that you have a very highly motivated, engaged, creative workforce in your IT, which is geared up really to tackle the challenges of the digital world. If you don't have that, I think you need to build that, because without that, no matter how much hardware you buy, how many platforms and systems and great architectures you think you put in, I don't think you can go very far. So it's behind all of the technology, it's always about people and your teams. So that continues to be our focus, and we just try to drive more and more of that. Thanks.
People, team, EQ and empathy above technology. Great point there, Vishant. Thank you. Mukesh, what are your key insights?
Sure, if you would allow me, Radhika, I want to share 3 things and not one.
Sure.
Some of them probably a couple of my co-panelists cover, but maybe I'll reiterate. Yeah, I think number 1, and I think again somebody spoke about MS Teams usage. I think number 1 was, I think, very big learning that when you're driving digitization, some of these initiatives, a lot of effort goes in driving adoption. We launched a similar platform like Zoom. 1 year into the platform, probably we had 10% of people after all the effort. Lockdown happens 5 days, 90%, right? So I think the key learning there is we need to take bold decisions and remove the alternative. We want adoption. I think that is the big learning. Remove the alternative. I think that will make it happen. That is number 1. Number 2, I think I spoke a little bit about it, but it's sort of there in several places. There is this whole reset which happened on the definition of agility. What is called as best practice, 3 months, 6 months, it became 3 days, it became 5 days, and all of a sort of happening. So there is a need to sort of continue to keep that, the almost the animal instincts which came to make things happen at a much different scale and speed, at a very, very different type of time frame than what we are used to, what are called as best practice. So I'm calling that as reset of agility. We have a new definition of agility now, right? The third one, and I think Altaf spoke about it, I think when all of us were pushed to the wall, we came together so beautifully, and created such wonderful outcomes. There were no boundaries, people were not thinking functions. Everybody was so aligned to make sure that the organization goes through, and whatever it takes to do, we make it happen. I would call it this regrouping, which happened. How do we make this regrouping permanent? And that, I don't know the answer for that. I would like to sort of learn if somebody has figured this out as to how to make this permanent, as to what we are seeing in terms of collaboration, this whole culture shift. So those are the 3 things I'm saying: remove the alternative, reset the agility definition, and regroup permanently.
Crisis is mother of all innovations, and it has created ways of working which we all want to retain. And that's a very big point coming out. Great point, Mukesh. Jeyandran, what are your key insights?
Yeah, Radhika, I'll also cover a couple of things, right? One is, I think Vishant already spoke about it. I think we also are a very people-centric organization, right? So at the start of the crisis, right around the March timeframe, we made a very decisive and clear call, right? So a lot of our organization was actually wondering at that time on, hey, are we going to get our annual appraisal raises? Is there going to be cost cutting happening? So Kalyan, our CEO, came forward in a town hall and very clearly and decisively announced that, look, we are going to back all of you up. And we are going to continue with our regular appraisal raises with not even a reduction in the quantum that was originally planned. And being able to give at least a sense of stability in an environment where everything around them was changing and causing a lot of anxiety actually helped really the employees navigate that uncertainty a lot better. So continuing to be people-centric and making calls that help our employees, associates, etc., feel that we have their back is something that we have reaffirmed our faith in through this experience. We heard a lot from our employees about what that meant for them, how it made a difference for them. So the second part is, I think, leadership behavior, right? So in terms of planning for disaster recovery, business continuity, etc., it is no longer actually a theoretical exercise and to be kind of considered only when some black swan event happens, right? And guess what? I mean, the event has happened, and there could be other such events that could happen, right? Has become even more of a reality, right? So from a leadership behavior, thinking proactively about business continuity, resiliency, agility to be able to deal with customer demands that are evolving, business context that is changing rapidly, is something that is becoming very, very apparent. And I am definitely sure that my co-panelists would also agree that across many different industries, this is causing a huge mind shift in terms of leadership teams and how they look at all of these elements, right? Security, agility, and nimbleness to be able to address customer demands and all of that stuff. So lastly, I would summarize saying that I think the role of a technology organization and a technology leader has, and their accountability towards employees, towards your customers, towards your partners that you work with, etc., is even more clear and apparent now, right? And all of us need to step up to that new level of responsibility and accountability in the new world we find ourselves in.
Jeyandran, and so glad to see that behind all good leaders, it's team, empathy, taking care of people. That's there, getting repeated everywhere. In addition to innovation, and that's there at the center somewhere. Great insights, Jeyandran. Sriharsha, over to you. Your key insights from this pandemic.
So 2 areas got redefined. Okay, one is business continuity, other one is visibility. Okay, for business continuity, while we have honed the business continuity aspect for a very long time, okay, and almost made it perfect, this pandemic came back and said, okay, nothing is perfect. Change is always constant. The second aspect that came out of this is visibility. So initially, when we looked at visibility, we were fine-tuning and then saying that these are the things I need to be able to see. Okay, be it employees flashing their badges or whatever else we were doing. But today, that whole visibility has been redefined, wherein I also need to know, okay, how dense is my office or various other elements which are there, leading to how do I collaborate with the larger organization and bring the teams together to help in our journey, okay, moving forward. Okay, because that becomes very, very critical to ensuring that our businesses survive and move forward together and bring in all the innovations that we need to be bringing out to the market. At the same time, okay, not lose the momentum.
Thank you, Sriharsha. This has been amazing. There is a very consistent message that has come across from all the leaders from across the industries. So technology is a common language, breaking boundaries across businesses, and that has very clearly come out. Agility, virtual ways of working, the entire digitization, cost optimization, and last but not the least, and maybe the forerunner, is your team and protecting their interest and empathy at the core of it. So that's an amazing discussion. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to moderate this wonderful session. And thank you, ET CIO, for giving us opportunity to bring this thoughts together here.
Thank you, Radhika, and thank you, panelists, for that amazing session.